Welcome to The Growing Band Director, the podcast that dives into topics applying to all of us band directors. My name is Kyle Smith, and joining me is my friend and colleague Jeff Smith. Together we discuss many aspects of a school band program, including how to build your concert, jazz, and marching programs, as well as everything else we do as band directors. More importantly, we'll discuss concepts that help us all improve our own programs every day. Always remember the famous quote by Ray Kroc, "When you're green, you're growing, and when you're ripe, you rot." Let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of our grade 4 repertoire series. And this is the other half of the pieces that I had designated for this podcast. And I have a lot of great music on here, so I hope you enjoy this music. I am playing full recordings because I know it's really great listening to all this music. So again, like I mentioned on the last podcast, even if this music is a little bit beyond where your students are at right now, it's really important you know what's out there and you have some pieces ready for the time when your students maybe do get to this level. And I encourage you to keep lists of music that you like, that you might want to use, composers that you like, depending on what band you might have. So stuff that has a great flute solo when you get that great flute player, and stuff that has a lot of percussion versus not very much percussion, and keeping those things in mind so you're ready when you get a band or an opportunity to conduct something and you need to choose some grade 4 stuff. So again, I don't want to really peg all this music into a box. Some of it is a hard grade 4, some of it's an easy grade 4, and like anything, I think it's a sliding scale, and it's more about finding music that fits the kids you're actually teaching at that time and the music that they're being asked to play. So if you can find that great format and match, I think that's where you're going to be at your best. So hope you enjoy some of this music. I know I love it. The first piece is by Frank DeKelly, great composer and great conductor and teacher in California. This is called Simple Gifts, 4 Shaker Songs. First movement is in E flat major, and it's in cut time. It's super musical. This whole piece, I think is called probably a 3, a hard 3. I would consider a lower 4 just because it is, it's so specific to individual players, and it's a longer piece of music too. The 4 movements do last a little bit of time. It was commissioned by Tapp Middle School in Georgia. So it's a great piece of music, 4 percussion parts with not much doubling opportunities in there. This first movement is called In Yonder Valley, E flat major, cut time, and has some solos for flute and clarinet. So let's check out this first movement. The next movement is entitled Dance, and it's in cut time. It goes down a half step. So instead of being in E flat major, this one's in D minor, and it starts with alto saxophone with the melody, and again is pretty heavy on the woodwind side of things. This movement is great for teaching cut time and is quite playable. So here's the second movement entitled Dance. You'll find the essence of this music is quite simple because that was really a staple of the shaker culture, is that music should be simplistic and life should be pretty simple as well, hence the name Simple Gifts. This third movement we played on the grade 3 podcast, and in looking back, this whole piece is listed as a grade 3. I view it as a 4 just because of the musicianship that I feel like it takes to do all 4 movements. But this third movement is definitely a grade 3 and can be done separately. I believe it's called Shaker Gift Song, but here in this piece it's entitled Here Take This Lovely Flower. This is a great 6/8 ballad, and it's in B flat major throughout. Great music. Let's check it out. The final movement, of course, is entitled Simple Gifts, and it uses the tune that we all know. It starts in F major, then goes to E flat major, and really uses this tune in many, many different ways. And again, it's just a very musical treatment of this tune we all love. Starts with a solo or tutti trumpet version of the melody with straight mutes in, and then passes throughout the band, and is really, really quite an energetic finish to this great piece. So here's the fourth movement of 4 shaker songs entitled Simple Gifts. The next piece of music I've selected for you today is by Julie Giroux, great composer, and this piece is entitled Khan, Khan, and is written after for the great leader and conqueror Genghis Khan. And here's what she writes about the piece. This is a programmatic work depicting Genghis Khan and his army on the move. The opening theme is a warlord theme and represents Genghis Khan, which is followed by the horseback theme. Let's see. And then the 3 musical representations are used throughout the piece, creating a musical campaign complete with a serene village scene just before decimation. Most of the work is a brisk tempo combined with energetic rhythms and driving percussion, which continually propel the music urgently forward. Extreme dynamic contrast through this piece contribute to the emotional turbulence. Genghis Khan and his army ended the lives of thousands of people, and his warlord theme, with great force, ends the work. So you do need quite an extensive percussion section. I believe it's 6 to 8 percussionists on this to make this successful. There are 3 parts through trumpet, 3 trombone parts, 4 horn parts, 3 clarinet parts, and all that. So this is definitely a solid grade 4 by Julie Giroux. I've done this and my students absolutely loved it. So let's check out Khan by Julie Giroux. It's such an exciting work, and my apologies, I forgot to mention that there was also a piano part in that as well. So our next piece is going to be by the great Leonard Bernstein. This is arranged by Robert Longfield, and it's his version of the concert overture Slava. And let's see, there was the piece was written in the late 70s as a political overture for an orchestra, and basically Bernstein was making fun of the politics of the time with Slava. So, if you don't know Slava, then you're in for a treat here. If you do know Slava, then this version is a little bit slower. It's about 20 clicks slower, and again, could be done faster if you'd like. It really keeps a lot of the original intention of the piece, and it sometimes sounds like the original piece for me as well. Really interesting tuba line. Let's see, for percussion, you really need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players probably to do it easy justice. There is a great solo for trumpet with harmon mute and trombone with harmon mute and with plunger. It's, again, for comedic effect. There's some flutter tonguing in here as well. It's an ABA form, and the B section in the middle is in F major with an alto saxophone solo in it. And what's really cool about it is that it's in 7/8. So it's 2/4 in the A sections beginning and end, but the middle is 7/8. And it's such a great piece of music and really funny. The great composer Dan Buckfitch always said, it's easy for composers to make people cry or to make people, have other kinds of emotions in their music, but to make people laugh is really an art form. So Bernstein achieves it here with Longfield's version of this. So let's listen to Slava. That piece really is one of a kind. And, if you have kids who have a really good sense of humor and they can play really well too, especially if you have some pranksters in the band, that's a piece they really would enjoy. I know our kids loved it, and especially the kids who got to play the slide whistle. Wow, that was a lot of fun. So hopefully at some point you get to play Slava, arranged by Longfield. If your band is really amazing, there is a grade 5 version of Slava. That's the original one. I forget the transcriber on that because it's originally for orchestra, but yeah, this one is a little bit more accessible for most of us. The next piece is very special. It's written by Andrew Boysen Jr., and it's entitled Song for Lindsay. So this piece was originally written for piano, and Lindsay is the name of his wife. And it was written and premiered on piano at their wedding while they were on the altar. And then he decided to make it into a band work shortly thereafter. And this has been performed by a lot of bands. It starts with an opening French horn solo, which is meant to signify him. He was a French horn player originally. And then partway through, there's a great flute solo as well, which was Lindsay's instrument, I should say is Lindsay's instrument. And then in the end of the piece, they are meant to play as a duet together, symbolizing their marriage. And there is a very exposed piano part on this. Not that it's the hardest piano part ever, but you do have to have a good player on that, plus 5 percussionists. So there's some great writing in here for the choirs. In particular, there's a section where there's 4-part trumpets in straight mute, as well as 4 trombones in straight mute. And then it's 4-part French horn, as well, leading into the flute solo. So some bass clef marimba in this, and just a solid grade 4. Wonderful piece of music. I hope you enjoy Song for Lindsay. I think if you choose to do that piece, Song for Lindsay by Andrew Boyce Jr., you'll find it extremely rewarding emotionally and musically as well. Very special piece. I remember listening to that a number of years ago when my wife and I were growing our program, and we weren't yet at a place to be able to perform something like that. And I remember, us listening to it one time, and she looked at me and she said, "You know what? When you can play that piece and do it justice, you're doing a good job with your program." So, it's not that it's super rangy or anything like that, but the musicianship required in there is really special. I actually have this program for one of my concerts next year with my group, and I'm looking forward to it. So if you don't know it, that's published by Masters Music. Song for Lindsay. Our next piece of music is written by Samuel Hazo, and it's entitled Fantasy on a Japanese Folk Song. And this is a really wonderful piece of music. And this is what he has to say about it. Fantasy on a Japanese Folk Song tells the story of a Japanese girl who's given a music box by her mother and father when she's just a child. The music box played the Japanese doyo, or child song, named Tsunayama. As a young girl, this music box always provided a sense of comfort and solace during her trying times. When she becomes an adult, she falls in love with an American and faces the choice of staying in her Japanese village or marrying and going back to America with him. She's so very much in love with him that she chooses to leave. However, she later realizes the need to feel close to her culture, and part of her always wonders if there was a life if there was a life for her in her native Japan. As time goes by, the sense of conflict, which is more easily suppressed in the beginning, surfaces with more intensity, proving that only in a woman's heart can there exist an inner love and an inner war simultaneously. Balancing her love for her husband and her love for her culture, she left behind gives way to painful episodes. During these moments, her only method of coping with her circumstances is to lock herself away, open the music box given to her as a child, and at the sound of the very first note, start to cry. So this piece is really wonderful. It has an Asian influence in it, of course. There are 3 percussion parts plus 3 mallet percussion parts and a timpani part, along with a harp part, which of course is written in the grand staff, so it can be played by a synthesized piano. So you need a number of percussionists for this, and as well as within there, a number of quality mallet percussion players as well. I don't remember the horn, the wind parts being overcomplicated on this. There are just 2 French horn parts, 3 trumpet parts, 3 trombone parts as well, and it's just such a lovely piece of music that kids really, really love. What's special about it is, so it's in F minor, but what's special about it is it starts with 1 or 2 flute players playing with the ocean drum happening. And I've actually done this with a number of ocean drums being played all at the same time. So it starts with a great opening flute solo and continues on. So I hope you enjoy this piece, Fantasy on Japanese Folk Song. Well, that's such a great piece of music. My kids really enjoyed playing that so much. The next piece we're going to listen to is by Aaron Copland and transcribed by Ken Singleton. This is from the Tenderland called The Promise of Living. And if you haven't heard this piece of music before, you should really check it out. It's such an amazing musical and emotional work if you listen to the original. And this wind band version is just behind that, I believe. It's not easy. This is a stiff grade 4 for sure. Very exposed flute solo right at the very beginning. This piece builds and builds and builds throughout and is sort of one of those long haul sort of pieces. Let's see, there is an English horn solo that is cued in trombone. But when I've heard this done successfully, this is really like you have to have very soloistic type woodwind players, and then the brass come in partway through to basically build the whole piece. And they have some difficult parts too, but it's really on solo woodwind players. And if you have some strong, oboe and flute, clarinet, saxophone players, then this piece might work for your group. There are 5 percussion parts plus a harp/piano part, and it's very rewarding, but it's pretty tough. But it's such a great piece of music. I wanted to expose everybody to it. If you don't know it, here is Ken Singleton's transcription of The Promise of Living by Aaron Copland. So lovely. And, the ranges in that are pretty extreme. Trumpets go up to high C, French horn goes up to high C, and trombone goes up to high B flat. Tuba actually goes up to a high D above the bass clef. A couple other things I noticed as I was listening to that again that make that a mature piece of music is the delayed gratification of how long that takes to build all the way up to the climax, and the patience that musicians need to have in order to wait for that and really build it successfully. But also the ability to tune all those Copland perfect intervals. The fourths and the fifths and the octaves are just such a big part of Copland's music. So anytime you do that, that's going to be a really, really big challenge as part of that. So, that piece is not to be taken lightly. And I know I've only been able to do it once, but it's such a rewarding piece of music. And again, if you're looking for something to inspire you and kind of relax you, put on the YouTube video of the original version of that and find a good recording, and it's quite cleansing. The next piece of music I'd like to play for you is called Fantasy on a Theme by Sousa by Andrew Boysen Jr. And this is listed as a grade 3.5. He believes it's closer to a 5. And this is written for a band director who retired and was a trombone player. And let's see, he was asked to write this piece, and he decided to use The Fairest of the Fair, which is his favorite Sousa march. And he took the 4-measure introduction of that and used that as the entire basis for the whole piece. And so it opens with just low brass chorale with a clarinet solo, and with a slow opening, and then measure 18, the French horns, as is pretty common in his music, along with marimbas, set the tempo for the new, faster section of the piece, which is very exciting and not super easy. It's not the hardest thing ever, but it's really, really great musical work. Then you'll notice it dies down and has the middle section again, this time in minor for part of it, during this really cool tuba solo, and the trumpets get to use cut mutes as well. As it builds and it hits the fast tempo the second time, it builds to the end where it really is sort of a really emotional halftime ending, almost drum corps like in that setting, with the main melody coming back as a counterline in the horns and altos. And this piece is a very rewarding musical experience. I would probably view it as a closing piece to a program. Then even though it's slow for a long bit of it, it really does work in that setting. So hope you enjoy this piece if you haven't heard it before, and if you have, hopefully you enjoy hearing it again. Fantasy on a Theme by Sousa by Andrew Boysen Jr. As another side note to that piece, I forgot to mention earlier that the teacher at that school had taught there for 22 years, so there was 2 times where the chimes actually played that repetitive pitch 22 different times, each one to signify his 22 years at that school. So if you hadn't heard that before, I hope you enjoyed it, and hope you get a chance to do it sometime. It's a very rewarding piece. That there's that part in the middle with all those offbeats in the band, and then things are passing. That's definitely a spot that takes work for sure, but such a rewarding piece of music, and I hope you enjoyed that. The next piece of music I would like to play for you, and actually we have 3 left, so thank you for sticking with it. And these are really in no particular order, so hopefully you are enjoying some of these pieces and getting something out of this, and hopefully you'll play some of these with your groups. This one is the only one I have on this list that's kind of a nod to a musical or a Broadway number. And this is Ira Hirschen's arrangement or piece called Symphonic Dances from Fiddler on the Roof. And I mean, I've done this a couple times, and it's really, really fantastic. The biggest need is if you have a good clarinet soloist. They have to do some of the bottle dance stuff in the middle, and so it's not that high. It does go up to high D, and there's actually a duet with the second player as well. But the piece is so exciting and such a great musical experience. I've had kids really love this, and I've done this even on non-pops concerts before because the music is so great. And there's a spot in the middle called the Hava sequence, which is basically when Tevye is singing about his daughter moving away and going to miss her and all that. And it's one of the prettiest parts of music I've ever conducted, and really, really enjoyed it. And then, of course, a lot of the ethnic dance music that's in here, and it's just such a great musical experience. It's written with pretty typical timpani, mallet, and percussion 1 and 2 parts. So, you really should probably have 6 players, I would say, to do this. You can always, put percussion 1 on a drum set or something like that. But such a great piece of music, and I hope you guys enjoy listening to it. So here's the Symphonic Dances from Fiddler on the Roof, arranged by Ira Hirschen. Obviously, as you were listening to that, you noticed that was a live recording. There was a couple tempos in there that I would personally take a little bit faster, but you also never know what went into the decision to perform a piece a certain way. That group did such a great job of it. To be honest, the studio recording on that is actually really quite good, but I wasn't able to find a link of that to put in here. So thanks to that group for having that recording out there and letting us hear them. That was so great. So I enjoyed that piece very much, and I found that it's worth the effort because it's such great music, and there's so much you can teach in there. So we've got two pieces left, and they are very contrasting, even though both of them are sort of mostly slow, but also have some fast as well. The next piece is by Bruce Yurko, entitled Night Dances. And if you haven't heard Night Dances, this is one of those pieces that I really think is on the easier side of the grade 4. Ludwig Masters calls it a grade 3. However, I really think it's of the 4 range. There are lots of, I would say a couple times there's some really quickly changing dynamics. So don't be startled when it's really quiet and then all of a sudden there's a really loud moment coming at you as well. It starts with only percussion. In fact, this piece leans heavily on a strong percussion section. So you really should have 6 players for this to do it justice. This piece explores a lot of those nighttime sounds that you might hear should you be out in the middle of the night and if it was quiet. And it starts, for example, a timpani player rolls on an E, third space E, and then in the second measure, another percussion 1 comes over and rolls on an F at the same time with these half steps. So it really creates the first 2 pitches of this series of pitches that goes F, E, E, F, E, F, E, C sharp, G sharp. And that plays throughout the piece as it goes. You'll notice a strong flute choir sound where you really need 3 equal sounds in flute. You can't have like a second or third flute section that's not very strong in this. And I believe they go down to E flat for flute if I'm not mistaken. The clarinet choir has some moments where they are in octaves, clarinet including bass clarinet, and that's super cool. The sound that it creates is a very mysterious sound that builds and builds and builds to the first climax. After that, the woodwinds take it as it gets softer again, and the percussion again takes over with this sort of like dark riff dance kind of groove that's heavy on the tom-toms, but very sort of in the distance. Again, the clarinet section gets exposed with some simple parts as well, and the timpani player gets to play some glissandos on a low drum, which is quite nice. The middle part will probably scare you as it sort of comes up pretty quickly. It's a cut time part that is deceptively hard in the trumpet section, so you do need a decent trumpet section to play this. The other brass parts are not overly complicated if my memory serves me correct. And again, this is one of those pieces that you can use as a middle piece, but it's not really lyrical. It's more like a really good chance to dig your heels in a little bit for some contemporary music without making it too out there. And I found that my students really enjoyed it. So you'll also hear some sounds of some major and minor sounds happening at the same time and things like that. So really great foray into some contemporary music, and works great as a middle tune. Again, if you have a strong percussion section, some good flute players, some decent clarinet players, and some decent trumpet players as well. So here's Night Dances by Bruce Yurko. I'm not gonna lie. I actually attempted to alter the levels of those two parts a little bit because I could just imagine, some of you driving in your car, or whatever, listening to this nice quiet thing, and you kind of tune out a little bit, and then you hear those big hits, and it happens twice, right in the middle, and then at the end, and I could just imagine somebody driving off the road or something. So I attempted to save you from that by warning you about it, and then also editing it just a little bit. So hopefully everybody's safe after hearing that. But in all seriousness, that piece of music is so special. To be honest, I haven't really found another piece like it. That's why it's been so popular over so many decades. And, it just has that really melodic moments to it, but also very contemporary without being kind of too out there. And I found that piece a really good stretch into the contemporary music realm. So if you haven't heard that piece and you've got some good percussionists who might want to tackle that, hope that piece works for some people. Again, that's Night Dances by Bruce Yurko. And our final piece of the series is by Samuel Hazo called Solas Ane. The story behind Solas Ane is that in 2003, Sam Hazo was at the Midwest Clinic and was introduced to a band director named Margene Pappas by the great teacher Paula Kreider. And Margene Pappas was about to retire, and they worked out a way for him to write a piece for her as a gift to her band as she was retiring. And she had just had a piece. Her high school band had just performed one of Sam Hazo's pieces at the Illinois State Music Convention, and so she was a very high-level teacher with a great program. And because her last name was Pappas, he asked if she were Greek, and she said, "No, I'm actually Irish." So he decided to use the Irish flavor to this piece. And you do need to have good soloists, both within piccolo, which is where it starts, as well as flute and oboe and bassoon, actually. There's a solo right at the beginning, as well as for bass clarinet. And it does use contralto, E-flat contralto, if you decide to use it, but it's also doubled in bassoon as well throughout. So the melody is very great, but the reason I really love this piece, besides the fact that it's very musical and a great way to explore the emotional ranges for your group, is that it has limited percussion parts. It's actually percussion 1, 2, and 3, but in the middle of it, there's this Irish jig where the band plays, but then the percussion section just gets to rock on this Irish jig throughout, and they really, really love it. So if you're looking for a ballad that's really musical to feature some of those players, but you have a percussion section that can basically play this unison jig behind the whole band on as many drums as you want to put them on, it's really a special moment. So partway through this recording, in the recording, it's actually measure 44, where it states the melody a couple times, and it's changed keys from F minor to E flat major or C minor, and then it's going to hit this jig section where the melodies in the horns and the altos, there's a jig counter melody in the upper woodwinds, and then the percussion get to play this really cool jig line. So I hope you enjoy this piece, Solas Ane. My kids have really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to doing it again soon as well. So in Gaelic, it translates to yesterday's joy, and I hope you enjoy it. such a great piece of music. I know I say that on all these, but it's totally true. So solas ane are the two Gaelic words meaning joy, joy, and yesterday or yesteryear. And she always had basically said, turning the band room lights on every morning for 37 years was her passion. So we've all had that, right? You go into the band room and you turn it on, and that kind of starts the day, and you shut it off, and that kind of ends the day. And so that was a really, really nice way for her to think about that as she was ending her career in 2006, about turning the lights off and the band room that one final day. And that day was declared Margine Pappas Day in Oswego. And the concert featured her present band as well as the Oswego High School alumni band comprised of some great professional musicians that have had her. And the final turn is, sadly, the title Solas ane gained a deeper meaning and most unfortunate meaning, as one half an hour after her final concert on the day named after her, Margine's father passed away of pneumonia in Illinois as well. So a very emotional piece and great chance to play some Gaelic music if you have the players to do that. Again, I think that's a pretty right down the middle of the road grade 4. And some of the brass parts are actually more of a grade 3 part. But hope you enjoyed that. And again, thanks for subscribing, everybody, and checking it out. And hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe too. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, if you have the time, we highly recommend the After Sectionals podcast for more great listening. Thank you for listening to the Growing Band Director. See you next week.